What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 197.
197.
On this Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Tuesday. 25 days until kickoff. 3.5 weeks until the opener. Fall camp is off and running. We've had a couple open practices. We've had the media day last week. We talked to some guys yesterday. Even talked to a position coach yesterday, Miguel Chavis. We're off and running. Fall camp's completely in full swing. We're going to recap the early stages of it, the first week or so in the books, some early standouts, some early storylines. We'll sift through it all on the program today. We'll continue our position preview series, offensive line. Going to wrap up the offense, and we're going to shift over to defense with the D tackles, maybe the deepest and best position on the team. We will discuss on the program today as we continue to move through fall camp. Season opener coming in just a little over 3.5 weeks. Coming up with the season, obviously we're in the midst of fall camp. Recruiting still going. High school season coming up. Make sure to subscribe at Oklahoma247sports.com. Promo code SoonersPod60. All one word, 60% off a year subscription to Sooners Illustrated and the entire 24/7 Sports Network right now with the promo code SoonersPod60. If you're listening on pod, all one word, capital S, capital P. If you're on YouTube, it's right there on the screen. Screenshot it, do whatever you got to do to remember it, and subscribe, be along for the ride as we're right in the thick of it here, guys. Fall camp off and running. Like I said, we've had a couple open practices. We've had, player interviews yesterday, the media day last week. We're in it now. Like, we're in the thick of it. Fall camp is here. Opener a little over 3 weeks away. It's felt good to actually see this team in person a couple of times. We'll be out there again tomorrow, but feels good, right, that we're back into it with fall camp officially off and running here.
Yeah, I mean, especially, through these first 4 days of practice, we've had essentially 2 hours out on the field. I think it was 70 hours the first day, 70 minutes the first day.
70 hours is a lot.
And 40 minutes on Monday. So we've gotten to see a good amount. Again, they're not doing too much when we're out there, but we have gotten to see a lot of indie work, some good on good, some inside drills, some one-on-one in the red zone between receivers and tight ends and corners and the defenders there. So gotten to see some good stuff, gotten to see some special teams work. It's just good to be out there, minus the heat. I mean, it was pretty unforgiving yesterday out there, but man, it's season's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, like it's been a little bit different than last year, where like half the time we were out there is like the stretching part of practice. We're seeing some good stuff, like Tom just said. We're seeing one-on-ones. We're seeing, some of the team, like we saw John Mateer and the offense play against air for a little bit on the first practice. Like it was a good situation. You got to see how they're running the offense and things like that, which is the big, thing, a talk of the offseason so far. So it's been pretty good. It's been pretty fun getting to see a lot of different guys.
Yeah, lots of practice highlights on the YouTube, both yesterday and from Friday. Like these guys said, I mean, on Friday, lots of kind of the lines of scrimmage just meshing, had lots of great like DN tight end battles. And yesterday, one-on-one battles of wide receivers and running backs and tight ends going against, guys in the secondary or linebackers, whatever. Good stuff. I mean, just fun to see. And so it's been great. The access has been awesome. And we're going to be out there again tomorrow. Another open practice tomorrow. So be sure to keep an eye out for full coverage, both on the site, of course, Oklahoma.247sports.com, and here on the YouTube channel. It's been great. It's been an awesome start to fall camp. A lot more to come in the next 3.5 weeks. But the opener looming, obviously just 25 days away. So before we get into some fall camp stuff, there is some stuff up to get into. Some early injuries to kind of sift through and other kind of standouts, takeaways. I want to continue our position preview series. We've been doing this. If you're new, most people know the drill by now, but we take a position, we pull it apart, the names to know, our qualms with the position, whatever it may be, and we give it a confidence ranking at the end of how we feel that position stacks up relative to the other ones on the team. We've done 4 offensive positions so far. We're going to wrap it up on offense today with the offensive line, a very intriguing group, because it feels like here, guys, the ceiling is very high, but the floor is like hard to know. Like it could be low. I don't know. I mean, it certainly feels like on paper it's far deeper than it was a year ago. They've added a lot of talent. Obviously, last year the wide receivers took the headlines from an injury standpoint, but right behind them was the offensive line, right? Beat up all year. Never really had like their full 5 really at any point of the year. Especially in the first half of the year, though. I mean, it was Josh Bates starting at center. Like everyone was hurt the whole season. Found a little stability late, but for the most part, guys, the offensive line was really beat up last year. This time around, healthier, hopefully, at least as of now, healthier. You've added some talent in that certainly looks on paper like is going to have the chance to make a big impact, both through the portal and potentially from the high school ranks, guys like Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje. And then, some year two guys kind of coming up, like an Eddie Pierre-Louis certainly has moved the needle a lot, both in spring and the early part of fall. This offensive line, I've gotten asked a bunch of times doing whatever radio spots or whatever, is the offensive line going to be better? And I always say the same thing. It should be, right? I mean, it certainly.
It's hard to be worse.
It's hard to be worse. We all remember that Ole Miss game without a billion sacks. This group feels a lot better on paper, right? And much deeper than certainly was a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've hammered it to death throughout since the end of the season, but this was one of the worst offensive lines in the country last year.
Yep.
And as you said, even before they got to week one, they did not have their, ideal five out there because, Troy Everett was injured last spring. So missed, the first several games. Branson Hickman, who they brought in from SMU, he got hurt early on. They had Garen Hatchett out there playing center, and he was playing it with a torn bicep before, essentially playing one game and then missing the rest of the season. Jake Taylor, Jacob Sexton, both those guys were injured. Michael Tarquin, I think, had a knee injury that kept him out of the lineup for a little bit. And it was just so many moving pieces, especially, that right tackle spot was rotating on. They had Spencer Brown in there late in the year, having to rely on him. A lot of movement at center until Troy Everett returned and kind of settled back in. And then, like you said, the second half of the season, they kind of found some rhythm, especially on that left side, I think, where they had Logan Howland and Heath Ozida coming in, basically starting the second half of the year there. Brent Venables has said, they probably got thrown in the fire a little bit before they were ready, but those experiences are going to help them because, I think they showed some good things late in the year, but then they both, have off-season shoulder procedures and miss the spring, so that they get a little bit behind and give some other guys some opportunities. We're seeing Jacob Sexton out there at left tackle with the first team. We're seing Eddie Pierre-Louis out there with the first team at left guard with Howland and Ozida behind them. So I think it's really interesting, but I agree with you. The depth and the experience across the line is in a better place than it was last year. If the unit can stay largely healthy, I think that they'll be a lot better than they were last year. But, I don't think they need to be a, top 3, 4, or even 5 unit in this conference for this offense to be good. Sure. I think they just need to be, top half of the conference, maybe even 8th in terms of their effectiveness for this offense to get rolling and produce. Because, you just saw how an inefficient offensive line just derailed everything else for this offense last season.
And they tried to build through the portal a little bit too. With all the offensive line, all the movement that they had, that was also one of the issues they were having because they just didn't have any chemistry with each other. And as they were getting hurt and couldn't find an offensive line that could stay together, it was like, what was it, 7 different offensive lines to the first 7 games of the season?
8 through 9.
8 through 9. Yeah, it was like, it's ridiculous. Like, you can't find any chemistry. And like we saw in the back half of the season, they got a little bit better. They started doing a little bit better things. And now you have that spring camp, now going into fall camp. The guys look better. We're seeing it. We're saying, hey, they look a little bit better this time around. So you add in those guys like Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje, who Ryan Foje looks like he could be going for a starting position already. Even as a freshman, he looks pretty good out there. You're seeing good things. So that's where I'm seeing it right now with the offensive line.
It's very interesting. I'm curious to see how this is going to shake out and when that first depth chart actually comes because, Tom, we talked about it a little bit, Blake and I last week. Tom asked Ben Arbuckle at the media day, like, you play Michigan week 2. Like, you got to kind of get the 5 settled relatively quickly, at least in theory. And it's very fluid right now. Outside of Troy Everett at center, I don't know if anything is really for sure, right? The other 4 spots are all, I think we have our favorites, but I don't know if anything's really for sure. Nothing I would wager any sort of significant money on, right? Other than Troy Everett probably is going to be your starting center, kind of the leader of that group.
I think Derek Simmons is probably your starting right tackle.
Probably. That's certainly, I would be surprised if not. But again, I don't know. There's a few guys making push. Jacob Sexton's really interesting to me because he said explicitly, I prefer to play tackle. Is he maybe just better as a guard though? And is he open to that if that's the way it goes? What they do with him is fascinating because this is a guy that at one point was considered is going to be the future of the offensive line. He's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit just because of injuries from a public perception, but it's the guy's really good when he's healthy. He probably has one of those 5 spots, and then like I mentioned earlier, Eddie Pierre-Louis, it's at a point where the hype is so high that I'm almost would be surprised if he's not at least seeing rotational snaps, if not potentially starting at one of the guard spots. It's a lot to be sifted through, and it's a good problem to have because it's not a case of like it felt like last year with the injuries was like what 5 can they even throw out there. It's more a product of there being a lot of options this time. Like they have more than 5 guys capable of starting, it would feel, and putting together a good offensive line. But it's up to Bill Beatonbow and Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables to find the right 5. And that might be hard to do until the games start. It's going to be very interesting to see how this kind of shakes out by the time we get to the opener.
Yeah, I asked Troy Everett a similar question to the one I asked Ben Arbuckle about just, the importance of getting the line settled pretty quickly after, everything they went through last year with all those shuffling. And, Troy Everett said, the depth is better. There's a lot of guys, that deserve to play. And he's like, look, Bill Beatonbow, he's gonna shuffle some guys around. So like, even if they don't necessarily have the starting 5 settled right away, he expects more guys to play because they have more reliable and capable contributors. So, you may see some guys playing fewer snaps just to get other guys opportunities. But I think eventually you're going to have to, settle on, that, 5, 6, 7 guys that you really trust to go in there.
Mm-hmm. I jokingly asked Jacob Sexton about just him playing guard. This is like, was it easier because of what you did in high school, which he was always the best tackle in the state, but come the playoffs in his senior season, he went to nose tackle to like just play on the defense side. And he disrupted a lot of offenses. I was like, did that make it easier just knowing that position? Like, does it help out at all? He was like, yeah, that was pretty fun though. Getting that and helped me out with my 3-point stance and things like that. So that was pretty funny. I think a really good situation for him.
Yeah, and obviously the question of like, can Michael Fasusi or like James said, Ryan Foje break through and maybe not start right away? That's probably asking a lot, but have a role on the 2 deep and then be starting by year's end. I mean, if you told me Michael Fasusi's in the starting lineup by the time we get to like those last couple of home games, wouldn't shock me, right? And depending on how the year kind of goes, so there's a lot to kind of sift through here. Fabechi Nwewu, like is this guy just definitely starting again? I mean, he was kind of the one consistent guy a year ago. Is he penciled in? These are all questions that are going to be very interesting to kind of watch play out over the next, several weeks. And you have other guys like Brent Venables is hyped up, Daniel Akinkunmi a lot. Like there's a lot. You start to go down the list. There's quite a few names here that you can kind of make a push for getting onto that 2 deep and thus seeing playing time early in the year. But then again, like to Tom's point earlier, you play Michigan week 2, so you want to have something a little more solidified, hopefully by then, you would think. So on that note, we'll do the confidence ranking, 1 to 10. How are we feeling about the offensive line? I don't even know who's starting. Where are we at on that? Let's see. We're on the 5th one, so it should be James.
I think it's me.
James to start. Offensive line, how are you feeling about it? 1 to 10.
I lowballed the tight ends last week.
That's right. That's right.
I'm gonna go 7.8 just because I'm not entirely sure what the ceiling could be for this room so far, but I think the floor is a little bit higher this time around. So I think 7.8 is a good rating for me, just based on what we saw. Like we talked about Ryan Foje, a freshman, a guy like that coming. I think we saw a lot of him on Friday because Fabechi Nwewu was a little banged up and wasn't practicing. But I think going back out there, he showed what he could do as well. So I think there's just so many options, as you said, Josh, that this offensive line can go any direction. And so I'm at a 7.8, which is like a wait and see type of number, I feel like, overall.
Yeah, I'm right with you. You almost nailed my number. 7.75 was going to be my number. 7 3/4.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of upside. I mean, it could be a very strong group. But, there's some unknown here as well. The depth is in a good place. Can they keep it healthy? If Troy Everett does go down, obviously he's battled. Is Jake Michaela, I guess, ready to step in as the guy there at center if it comes to it? What are they doing with Sexton? I mean, there's just kind of a lot of kind of moving parts here. Like we said, we feel good about Derek Simmons probably being right tackle. You would guess. Is it Howland at left tackle? Like it's hard for me to give too strong of a number when I don't really have a solid feeling of the 5. But also, like, not a low number. Like, there's a lot of depth here. There's a lot of upside. I think there's a lot of reasons to feel confident about this offensive line being much, much better than it was a year ago. So I feel strongly, 7.75. It's a very solid group. Could be, like Tom said, a middle-of-the-pack group in the SEC, which is all they really need. If they can run the ball a little bit, protect John Mateer, put some points on the board to go with this defense, they should be all right. So I'm going 7.75. A solid group. certainly a ceiling of being, maybe like an 8-5 or something by year's end, but you have to kind of live up to that. And after last year, I think we all kind of want to maybe see it a little bit first before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So 7.75 for me.
Yeah, you guys are a bit higher than I am. Now the grade I'm giving them here, I'm going with a 6.5, but I think that's because I think that's more what the floor of the unit could be. I think that there's room for them to be better than that. But again, until they go out there and show that they're better than last season, I don't think I could put too much confidence in them. I think that they'll be better. They should be a lot better than they were last year. But I think at worst, like they're still going to be they're going to be better than where they were last year. It's just a matter of how much better are they, like how far up into that SEC hierarchy can they kind of get. And I want to see that, and I want to see what that 5-man unit looks like through the first couple of games to really get a better idea of where they're at. So I think for me, again, giving them a 6.5, that's more of where I see their floor at right now, with room for them to finish much higher.
I mean, yeah, and like I said, just them playing their actual positions, a lot of the guys being in one spot for a majority of the camp, I think, and just being healthy, I think that's going to help out a lot of the situations they had last year. I think that's one of the bigger reasons for them to have a 7.8, I feel like, overall.
No doubt. Going to be a fun group to watch. And, that starting 5, when actually we get to the first depth chart, very interesting. That's probably where my eyes are going to go first when that first depth chart drops, because it's just, a lot of moving pieces as they kind of shifted and figured it all out. But
how many
than a year ago?
Yeah, but before we move on, and while we're still 2+ weeks out from that first depth chart, how many of those starting spots do we think are going to have like an or by them in week 1?
All except for Troy Everett, maybe.
Yeah,
I'll set the over under at that. I'm like 2.5. Like,
yeah,
over. Yeah, I'm over.
Yeah. Probably over. At least 3, probably. Yeah. So
I like Derek Simmons at right tackle. I'm like Troy, but it just could go either way. I mean, I could see it, but I feel like that's a good thing too overall, because you're like you see that guys can play the position pretty well, and you have the ability to throw them in there and be all right. I think that's a good spot to be in.
If you had to take a stab at the 5, I mean, Everett, Simmons, EPL.
I think right now EPL is in position to be the starting left guard. I think Jacob Sexton will be the left tackle. Right guard is interesting. We saw Fabecci out there, get first in the rotation yesterday. He was absent from practice on Friday when we were out there, but I believe it was an excused absence. Like that, it wasn't a surprise. They were expecting that. And we saw Ryan Foje getting some reps there. It's like, how much can you trust a true freshman going out there week 1? And again, it's against an FCS opponent, so like maybe that's his opportunity to like really seize the job. But I think 4 of the 5 spots really kind of have a favorite. 3+ weeks out from the season.
Yeah, I think I said Fabecci was banged up. That's not true. That it was an excused absence. He had a personal thing going on. That's what it was.
Right. So it'll be fun to watch. We'll sift it through, and it's going to be a group with a lot of attention on it, certainly going into, again, we're not going to learn a lot, you wouldn't think, from the opener, but Michigan week 2, that defensive front, that's a way to get guys going early in the year. We'll have a much better idea of what they'll have at that point, obviously real early on in the season. So that wraps up offense. We've done all the offensive positions. Let's go to defense, starting with the D tackles. So, we talked about it a few times over the course of the summer. National media, some have dubbed this the best defensive line in the SEC, and thus potentially the country, right? I mean, if you're the best in the SEC, you're going to have a very good shot to be the best in the entire country. It's crazy. Obviously, it's nuts how far that defensive line in particular has come under Brent Venables, and Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis will do defensive ends next week. This group on paper is loaded, right? And we talked a lot about it. It feels like maybe the best position on the team. Dominic Williams back. Jaden Jackson, after a freshman All-American season, is back. Grayson Halton, who's one of the more underrated players on the entire roster, is back. David Stone, year 2 after that brief little portal stint, is back. They also have Marcus Strong back in the fold as well. You add Trent Wilson. You sign Ricky Lolohea out of the portal. It's a very deep group on paper.
Michael Smith.
And the 2 deep, 100%. It's a group that, it looks as strong and formidable as you could really hope for, frankly. going into another season in the SEC. On paper, guys, I mean, you can make the argument for or against it. It feels like probably the best, strongest position on the roster. I think it's probably going to get my highest score. I mean, it's in a great place under Todd Bates going in here, his fourth year, obviously, we're with BB.
Yeah, I mean, you bring back 3 of your top 4 guys in Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, Dominic Williams, all starting caliber guys when you can really only start 2 of them. I kind of view Grayson and Jaden as kind of 1A and 1B at that defensive tackle spot there. Well, but you only really lose Dejon Terry. And I think he played like 317 snaps last year. So you got to find a way to distribute those. And it's like, how many of those snaps does David Stone earn? We've heard all the right things about him this offseason. Obviously, had a good spring. There's a little, dalliance into the portal there for, less than 48 hours before he decided to come back. And, Todd Bates has been really high on him since then and, really believes that he's primed for a breakout. Certainly, he has all the potential in the world. There's a reason he was a 5-star. But, we need to see him put it together for them to like really cement that core 4 inside. But I like the depth of that room. I like the talent of that room. And like you said, I think this is probably the strongest, most talented position on the roster, top to bottom.
Yeah, I don't know where Michael Jordan was at where he said this, but I'm going to reference it. The ceiling is the roof right here for this defensive tackle group. Like it's really, really good. I mean, and you talked about it, Tom, with David Stone, who I feel like is going to help beef up just the overall projection of this defensive tackle room, just him going in there and being healthy because he also had a little banged up arm, I think, was it last year? He was dealing with that as well for a lot of the time. And not having the confidence to go in there and do it. I mean, there was a lot of speculation in the offseason about where he was going to play it. He came back, and now I think he's going to earn everything that we had put on him, the expectations we had put on him on 24/7 Sports. So having him along with Dominic Williams, Jaden Jackson, those guys, and Grayson Halton, it's going to be a really, really good unit overall, I think. It's going to reflect in my score as the highest on the team, I think.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. For me, it's David Stone. David Stone is kind of the X factor of the group in terms of he can really elevate it to that truly elite, maybe best in the SEC, status. If he's what we all think he could be, he looks incredible. So we're going to get into kind of standouts from the practice sessions here in just a little bit, but an early one for me there, David Stone. I mean, the guy's a Mack truck. He's huge. He looks awesome. Can he do it? Can he be that guy? Because Jaden Jackson, obviously, a tremendous freshman year. Dominic Williams back. Grayson Halton, his ability to rush the passer from the inside is so unbelievably valuable. It's a room that is in phenomenal shape with or without David Stone. But with him living up to that potential, obviously, now you're talking about something really special. So he's the one that is kind of, not to put it, it's not like it all hinges on him, but that he's the one with the most can kind of tilt it one way or another from being just really good or truly great, right? So that's the big one for me. And I'm excited to see what kind of year he can have. That brief portal stint like we talked about. They find a way to get him back out of there, get him back for year 2. Obviously, he was a priced recruit and they got him as a 5-star and all that stuff from IMG, obviously in Oklahoma originally. Like there's everything set up for this guy to be big time. And it feels like it's all right there for him to go do. He just gotta go do it. So it feels like right there is David Stone. I mean, he maybe on the entire roster as far as like boom potential here coming up this fall. He's right up there toward the top.
And I think what we're seeing a little bit too is we're higher on him this time because he's always had the physical tools and the capabilities to be a really good player. But he spoke about it. He worked on the mental side a lot, just handling that situation. I think year 2 in the program as well, you get another, you get a higher spot on the depth chart, it seems like, and you think that he's just going to just take advantage of that. So that's where we're at on that with him, I think.
Absolutely. Confident score defensive tackles. What are we thinking here? I think, it's probably going to be the highest on the team for me. It's not going to be the case for you guys. Where I guess I'm starting, huh? I'm going to go. I mean, I'm going high. I don't have much, to say negatively about the group. I'm going to go with a 9.75.
Oh,
9.75. Yeah. Frankly, this could be a 10 if you told me that David Stone has a great year. That's really the little gap there between being a 10 is that. Like, what are we going to get from Stone? All the reasons I just said. The ceiling feels incredibly high for him. Dominic Williams coming back, defending the run. Grayson Halton, again, super underrated player, the way he can rush the passer. Jaden Jackson, a freshman All-American. The depth is really strong, even behind those guys. really very little worry about this position. And if you told me David Stone has got a year that we think he's capable of and is very productive and plays a lot of snaps and does that at a high level, it'd probably be a 10 for me. That's really the only thing leaving it a little bit of a gap is just kind of the unknown there. But 9.75, it's the best position on the roster for my money. It's in great shape. Todd Bates has really put together quite a group here. And I'm very excited to see it actually play out during the fall here coming up.
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, I'm hesitant to give a 10. Just because there are some minor questions there, like will David Stone live up to that expectation? But I mean, they seem confident that he's going to have a breakout year. So for me, I'm going to go with a 9.5. I think bringing back, Dominic Williams, Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, having David Stone step up, having guys like, Nigel Smith, we saw kind of in that second rotation there because, Grayson Halton's been a little bit banged up at the start of fall camp. But, Nigel Smith, a guy that came in as a defensive end, and, I think he's up to like 290 something now after being in, the 260 range. So he's really packed on the weight and is getting comfortable inside. And, I think could be a guy that, they can tag in for, 10 snaps a game, kind of similar to how we saw David Stone kind of ease into it in his freshman year. Trent Wilson is a guy that looks well beyond being a freshman, just a massive human being. How quickly can he get settled in and contribute there too? So again, I really like the depth. I like the talent of this room. Todd Bates has done a great job recruiting and developing it. And, just like you said, man, this is the best position on this defense heading into the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm 9.7. I think that's where I'm at on this defensive tackle team. It's a really good unit overall, like I said. I mean, there's no drop off, seems like, from the guys that you expect to play a lot of snaps for Oklahoma this season. I think that's going to bode well for them. Like I said, I think defensive tackle is one of the most important positions on a defense to disrupt the run game and the passing game at the same time of what they can do. So I think Oklahoma's defense is high because of what these guys are going to bring across that line of scrimmage. And I think even when you add the edges that are going to be really, really good as well, it's overall good situation, I think. So 9.7, I think I like where they're at.
Lot to like with Todd Bates' group. And again, we don't take for granted. There's been a lot of things in the Venables era that haven't gone well, right? They've had 2 6-win seasons, right? I fully acknowledge all that. Defensively, the turnaround from when he got here is unbelievable, and especially defensive line, because that was the main thing. Whenever the FCC move, it was like, man, Oklahoma's going to have to get way better in the trenches to have a shot. And this defensive line, the fact it's even being talked about as potentially the best in the conference is nuts. So it's crazy. And credit to Todd Bates, who, we talked about his pedigree a lot when Brent Venables brought him over, the amount of guys he's put in the NFL, the amount of like all conference first team guys. It's crazy. And you're seeing that bear out right now with where his position is going into this upcoming season. Next week, we'll keep it rolling. We'll kick it outside the defensive line. We'll do the defensive ends. A lot of fun names to watch there. Obviously, Mason Thomas, maybe the best player on this team, and a lot of breakout potential stars there. We actually talked to Miguel Chavis yesterday. So we'll get into defensive ends next week. Also, linebackers, which is a very interesting group as well. Really strong at the top. But what's the depth like? We will discuss that next week, as well as we continue to meander our way through. Only a handful of positions left, which means the season is getting closer. So we'll keep on rolling through next week with the position review. All right, so we do a little fall camp stuff. Obviously, fall camp's underway. They've had 4 practices. Practice number 5 is today down in Norman. We've been out there for 2 of them, like we said. Obviously, we've had the media day was last Wednesday. Blake and I recapped that a little bit on the show late last week. We had some player interviews yesterday along with Miguel Chavis yesterday, which is on the YouTube channel if you want to hear from him, which was nice. We hadn't got to talk to position coaches in 2 solid years. Right at the beginning of this site was the last time that we talked to position coaches. So that was cool that we got the chance to talk to Miguel Chavis. Hopefully we get more over the course of fall camp. Sounds positive on that front. But some early stuff here, guys. We'll get into kind of some standouts and everything. Let's recap some injuries here first, kind of some housekeeping. So obviously, Blake and I talked about it last week. Eli Bowen's going to miss the start of fall camp. He hasn't been doing anything just yet. Yesterday, Deion Burks was not participating, which got everyone freaking out. He was just in shorts, wasn't going through anything. Xavier Robinson, Taylor Tatum have not done much of anything the times that we've been out there. Derek Simmons missed practice yesterday. I believe that's a minor thing. It is an injury, but it's believed to be a minor one, nothing that should impact the season. Obviously, Jaden and Giovanni Gibson, kind of the same. I mean, Jaden has not really done much of anything. Giovanni, is looking good. Like Brent said back in the days, the boot is off. Like he's moving around. Again, he's not really participating, but you kind of see him out there. Like he looks like he's getting closer, but still not really participating in anything just yet. Anything jump out to you on the injury front here? Because there's a couple things that I think are slightly alarming. I mean, I don't know if any of these are going to be potentially season impacting, but again, it's worth noting all these injuries. Anything stick out to you on this side of things?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think that Derek Simmons and the Deion Burks injuries are kind of minor things that they expect them back pretty quickly. Kendall Dolby was another guy that was in shorts yesterday, not participating. We saw him with a cast on his left wrist on Friday while we were out there, but he was practicing. I think this is a separate issue. And again, look, guys get nicked up in fall camp. I know a lot of fans have PTSD after the injury situation last season, but I think Oklahoma's going to be erring on the side of caution with a lot of these kind of minor injuries this preseason, because you don't want to exacerbate them and have guys, sideline going into the season. So it's kind of hard to tell just like the extent of some of these. But I don't think there's, reason to panic just because you see a guy missing a practice here and there. But yeah, I mean, injuries happen. Guys get banged up. The one I'm really curious about really is, Eli Bowen, because that's just something that he's been dealing with since the spring. And like, at what point are you going to kind of be able to ease him back into things and get him ramped up? Because, when he's healthy, he's your number one corner. He's the best guy you got out there right now, even though he's just a sophomore and a little bit undersized. He plays well above his size. Played great against some of the best wide receivers in the SEC last season. And then on the Giovanni Gibson front, the thing that I thought was really interesting, and like you said, we saw him doing some jogging out there on Friday, but he's still been rehabbing. He has been practicing. But talking to John Mateer yesterday, he's like, yeah, when we stay after practice to go through like some additional walkthroughs, like he's out there with us. And, he's a guy that obviously had a huge spring before that injury. And I thought it was interesting that, Mateer was like, yeah, when he gets the green light, we're not going to be easing him back in. Like he's going to be full go when he's ready to go. Like he's like, I have no doubt about him. Like he's going to be out there. Davon Jordan said, he's going to be a problem when he's healthy. So we'll see what that looks like and how quickly they can get him back.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw guys like Taylor Tatum and Andy Bass even on the sideline yesterday. I mean, working with the football. They had full pads on, working on their cuts, sprinting down the sideline, doing those type of situations, just trying to get back fully % healthy. Andy Bass obviously had the 2 knee injuries, and that is trying to work back from that. And we're not really sure what happened with Taylor Tatum just yet, but they look like they're improving in progressing in whatever rehab that they're going through. And so I think that's a good sign for that room especially. And then the other guys. I mean, did you all see Marcus Strong? Was he battling a knee injury? Was that right?
I don't know.
I'm not sure what it was, but he was like sprinting.
I was going to say that he was
while we were out there.
So
obviously he's close to like being fully back out there. If they got him sprinting and doing more than just some light jogging and stretching out there. So.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He's sprinting as well, so he's progressing as well in his rehab. Want to see what Kendall Dolby, where the situation is with him and Eli, as Tom said. Those two, I think, are really big pieces of that defense, and you want to have them out there at least for a part of the camp and just get ready for the season. So those are kind of like the ones I'm really watching out for. I think Eli and Kendall, and seeing where they're going to be at overall.
Yeah, I would say I'm mildly worried about the receivers. Emphasis on mildly. I'm not panicking by any means, but you just kind of when you're out there yesterday is when it kind of really hits you when you're at practice and Burks isn't participating, and obviously both Gibsons are not participating. You're kind of looking around like, okay, like obviously Keontez Lewis off to a good start. Elijah Thomas looks awesome. A lot of positive things about Isaiah Satania early, but you're kind of just looking at the room like, what are the known commodities? And we talked about when we did the position preview, there aren't really any on this roster. And so when those guys are missing, and again, Giovanni and Deion Burks both could certainly be ready for the opener. And I think that is the hope, right? And the expectation at this point. But again, it's just when guys have been out, and this might be a little bit last year talking too, it's kind of like, it makes you just a tad uneasy when you're looking at the wide receiver room. There's talent there, but it's kind of like, okay, what are Mateer's go-to guys? Like, does he have any? he might, right? But it's a little, especially with bursts out, it's a little unsettling, right? And again, I don't think it's anything serious with Dion. You're still 3.5 weeks away from the opener, but after he was hurt a lot of last year, and he was hurt in the spring, and he's not participating in practice, on practice 4, you're like, man, it again, mildly concerned, nothing major, but it makes you a tad uneasy a little bit, because last year all those injuries, and we were desperate for anyone to make a play in the wide receiver room, and it never really happened. Not saying that's going to happen again, but we just saw it, right? So we have a little we've been burned here in this area. So,
but couldn't they just be like being overly cautious with Dion? Like, what he's going to do on the field, like what he can do. So like if he just feels a little pinch somewhere, just
that's totally possible.
I think that's the case with a handful of those guys, like Dion. Like if you have a minor thing with him, it's like, okay, what he can do when he's healthy, so make sure he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Grayson Halton has not practiced yet. I think he's dealing with I think it might be a hamstring or something in his leg. But like what Grayson Halton can do when he's healthy. So make sure he's healthy. Like he doesn't need those practice reps as much as some of those other guys out there. Same with Eli Bowen. I am really curious about his and like how quickly he'll be able to get back out there. But he's another guy where it's like, yes, do you want him practicing? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But does he need those installation reps as much as some of these? You look at the rest of that cornerback room and look at the youth that they have there. Bringing in a trio of freshmen, having a redshirt freshman, having a sophomore there behind them, and two guys that Gentry Williams, who missed most of last season, and Jacoby Johnson, who kind of moonlighted at wide receiver last season. It's like a lot of those guys probably need the reps more than Eli Bowen does right now. But yeah, look, I get it from a fan's perspective. I get having a little bit of PTSD from last year. Right. It's like when we see Jaden Mott out there, like in the rotation at kick returner, it's like, why are you doing that? Like we've seen the DeMarco Murray thing. Like I get that from the fans' perspective and why they're nervous about it, but I don't think that a lot of these are anything to be like overly concerned about at this point.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Eli's a little. It's just Eli's like it's been so long. That's the thing with him. Like it's been a very long time since we've seen him fully healthy.
No doubt. As far as guys who actually are practicing, we've been out there twice, on Friday for well over an hour. And then yesterday, not quite as long, but still for a healthy amount of time. Some standouts. There's quite a few here that stick out to me of guys who just look great, right? I mean, again, it's practice. We acknowledge all that up front. It is what it is. It's early in fall camp, too. All these guys are wearing shorts. We get all that. But nevertheless, some early guys that have stood out to you, give me maybe one or two, and we can kind of rapid fire a bunch of other ones. But Tom, if you had to pick one, or like I said, one or two, clearly like these guys look great. Who would it be in the early part of fall camp? These couple open practices that we've had.
Yeah, I mean, sticking on the subject of the wide receivers, since we were just talking about some of the injuries there. You asked about who might be John Mateer's like go-to guy, and one of the names that we keep hearing is Isaiah Satania, and just how reliable he is. When I hear like how reliable he is, and knowing that he can play in the slot if need be, or split out wide. I think we've seen him do a little bit of both when they've been in some of those full team settings. Is that I think of like a Drake Stoops, where it's like. You didn't necessarily think he was going to, have the breakout season that he had in 2023, but then like you throw the ball, he's catching it. Like he's going to be where he needs to be. He's got his timing down right. He runs good routes. He's got some versatility. I think Isaiah Satania, might be a little bit better of a pure receiver than Drake Stoops was. Drake was, very technically sound in just running those routes. But I think Isaiah Satania probably has a little bit more to his game, and he's a guy that's done it in the SEC at Arkansas. So he stands out to me. Zion Kearney's a name that we've heard a handful of times early on this spring. In year two, just being a bigger body guy that showed some things as a true freshman, but probably was thrown in there before he was ready. Keontae Lewis looked really good in that one-on-one drill that we saw at the start of practice yesterday. probably had 2 touchdowns. I think they ruled the first one out, but like when you slow it down and you look back at everybody's like video, it looks like he got that foot down, kind of lunging into the back of the end zone on a ball from John Mateer, and then had a really good contested catch at the front pylon with Cortland Guillory just like draped over him. Great defense and just a great throw by Michael Hawkins to kind of close out the period. And then Elijah Thomas, like every time.
Hold on, Tom. I think we're supposed to be doing two at a time now.
Well, I just wanted to focus on the receivers. Like Elijah Thomas, like as like a true freshman, like everything he does out there just looks so smooth and almost effortless. Had a really nice toe tap touchdown on that one-on-one drill yesterday. So I think those are some guys that have really stood out, especially when you kind of consider some of the injuries they've had at that room.
Mm-hmm. And Elijah Thomas, that rep that he did, like I was standing right next, me and Josh standing right next to each other. As soon as he caught it, we just looked at each other and said, "Oh
yeah,
sick!" Like he's an athlete, man. It was just like one move and goes. Like you just can't stop me. So that's what I'm gonna do. But I think like some of the guys that I've been seeing, I like Kendall Daniels. Like he is a lot bigger than I thought he was. That guy's massive. Yeah. Like he's so athletic. He can play so many different positions that I think he's going to be the ultimate like just toolkit guy. Like just fit where we can and you can do it. Like he has that knowledge because he's played, safety, linebacker, and now working at Cheetah a little bit as well. Like he's going to have the opportunity to play somewhere, in spurts, and I think it's going to help out a lot because he looks really good overall. I think he moves really well. I like what I see from him just overall. And I know this is like a little cop out, but Jaden Ott, who I mean, we didn't get to see him at Cal and things like that, but sure. Jaden Ott has played really well so far in what we've seen. Some of the reps, I like the way that he runs and how decisive he is. I know a part of that line of scrimmage defensive line drill they had on Friday where they were going against each other, we got to see a little bit of how Jaden Ott sees the field a little bit there. So saw some good cuts from him and saw some good things overall, just how he runs the ball and how he handles things. So those are the two guys that I kind of like see and have really stood out to me overall throughout camp.
Yeah, with Jaden Ott, I think the thing that stood out, again, going back to that inside drill inside drill there, it's just he creates space where there isn't space. Mm-hmm. He's, like you say, he sees the field well. He moves so smoothly with his cuts, and he's just explosive. And I think that's something that this offense lacked last year. I think he's going to really help them on that front. He talked, when we talked to him at the media day last week before the first day of camp, he talked about, the injuries last season and kind of what it was. It's like he had a grade 3 high ankle sprain. He had a grade 1 knee sprain. Said they were both kind of misdiagnosed and mishandled at Cal last year. And honestly, he probably should have sat a few more games and, let it heal up. But it just kind of lingered throughout the year. But he's healthy now. He's feeling great. He looks great out there. And then on the Kendall Daniels front, I mean, you talked about his versatility, playing Cheetah and, linebacker in the spring. Yesterday, he was spending a little bit of time with that safeties room. And I'm right there with you, man. I think he can be a weapon that you can kind of put all over the field. Hell, I think if you want, you could, stand him up as an edge rusher up on the line there because he's got that size. He's got that explosiveness to his game. And, he just kind of reminds me of like when Brent was at Clemson and had like an Isaiah Simmons type playing that Cheetah role where you can just, plug him wherever he wants and he's going to make plays.
Mm.
No, Kendall Daniels looks like the Terminator out there. I mean, he's just he's just so big and he can move. He's definitely a get off the bus guy. No doubt about that. I agree with every. I mean, definitely just looks different, right, than what they've had in some of the other running backs in that room. Not that there's not talent there. We talked about that when we did the preview, but Ott just looks different. Elijah Thomas, 100%. Just does not look like a freshman. I have to imagine he's going to have a role this year. He just looks great. I mentioned David Stone earlier. Mack truck, just a behemoth, totally in on Stone in year 2. He looks great. I would also add too, and we're going to do defensive ends next week. So not to step on the toes of that conversation too much, but we talked a lot about defensive end too. Who's going to be Mar Mason's guy? I think Marvin Jones looks awesome.
Yeah.
He really looks the part. I'm in on Marvin Jones. I know there's a lot of buzz about obviously Taylor Wine, what he's done in camp so far. And obviously, everyone's hyped about PJ Adebawore year 3, Danny Okoye. All those guys look great too. But Marvin Jones, you can kind of see why he was so highly touted in high school and like obviously played in a program like Florida State. And like he has that look to him of, I could see this guy helping the cause. I've been very impressed with getting to see Marvin Jones a little bit more here these last couple of practices. He definitely is one that stands out to me a lot on that defensive edge group. But we'll talk about the edge rushers next week, obviously. But there's a lot of guys vying for that second spot with R. Mason. And I don't know who I call the leader right now. I mean, obviously, Wine's having a great start to his camp. He's kind of the buzz name, but I've been very impressed with MJJ so far.
Yeah, I mean that's another group that's just like really deep, but just kind of guys that haven't quite done it at this level yet.
Sure.
But you really like the pieces, and again, we'll talk about it more next week. And I'm gonna have a story a little bit later today on the site. But like, just look at how that room has transformed from 2022 when this staff got here to going into this season. You look at the top 5 guys in the rotation, the top 5 projected guys going into this year who you just went over between, R. Mason Thomas, PJ Adewale, Marvin Jones Jr., Taylor Wine, and Daniel Okoye. On average, that unit is like 8 pounds heavier than what they had at defensive end 4 years ago. And, that might not seem like a whole lot, but you got, R. Mason Thomas is your most productive guy, and he's like the lightest guy in the room now, and he's like 250. But you got everybody else pushing 260. Taylor Wine's at 276. Like, you got some bulk there, which is just like what they need to go, to kind of go up against these SEC offensive lines and really continue to transform this defensive front. So yeah, I'm with you. I've been impressed by what I've seen from that group. Just like you said, guys that walk off the bus. You're like,
I like what Miguel Chavis said. You saw the offensive lines we were playing last year. Those guys like Waffle House, so we had to beef them up. That was pretty funny. I mean, what do you think about the number change for Marvin Jones going 97?
It's been throwing me off. He's like wearing Alex Shield Knight's number out there.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 97 is like a D tackle number, but if you're gonna make things happen, I guess any number can look cool if you're playing well. Basically.
It's like Luka Doncic where he wore 77. You're like, what in the world? Like they just now it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like it's hard to match with the aura of like David Stone wearing 0. Like,
or Jade not wearing 0 too is another like.
Oh yeah, but I love a big guy with a single digit. That always rocks. And so Marvin Jones wearing 8, but it works. It works. It works all the same as long as you're producing. Another open practice tomorrow. There'll be more highlights, more stuff to sift through. Obviously, more takeaways as we continue to sift our way through fall camp here, and we're getting ever so much closer to the start of the season. Before we go, anything else? I mean, I want to at least give you guys the opportunity. We've done a lot, right? It's hard to catch everything because we've had lots of interviews and open practices. But was there any other? And if you don't have anything, that's fine. But any other fall camp thing you wanted to make sure you got out there before we signed off for the week and we rendezvous back next week? Any other fall camp takeaways, thoughts?
Robert Spears Jennings had the most impressive rep in that one-on-one yesterday, where he was matched up against Will, who was a big dude, and just bullied him from the jump. Did not let him release on his route, and just like there was no throw on the play. So Robert Spears Jennings, as we all know, is a dude and is going to be a difference maker on the back end of that defense.
I almost said RJ for a standout and was like, that's stupid. Like, I kind of know what he is, but that rep alone, he looks great. He looks great.
I was going to highlight Jeremiah Newcomb's rep, just the way he got his head turned around and got his hand up. It was a couple of like trainers on my Instagram was like, that's textbook right there, man. That looks good. It's like, I mean, hey, he's doing it. Like it was perfect rep for him. Kept his arms on the guy, turned his head around, got his hand up. It just looked great. That was a great rep from him.
Yeah, no, Jeremiah Newcomb, not a guy we talk about really at all. Maybe we should, right? I mean, that cornerback room is wide open, and we'll have the preview for that obviously in a couple of weeks, but a lot of guys, and I would throw too. I mean, on that kind of note, we talked to Devon Jordan yesterday, Day as they've been calling him. First time we had talked to him in a formal setting, or I guess maybe he had his media day or whatever back whenever that was. It's hard to keep track of all these things, but it was very impressive. I mean, he's on the YouTube channel. You can catch up with him there. Kind of great to hear from him, and hearing him talk about kind of the room as a whole was kind of cool to get to hear from him. A guy who seems to be making the most of his kind of opportunity here too. That's maybe a name that kind of like Newcomb, like we maybe should get a little more acquainted with. Feels like he's right in there for the mix for snaps. Obviously, year 2 for him. Oklahoma kid. Talk about Gentry Williams, both Tulsa guys, and kind of mentoring him almost in a way. He's an older brother, a little bit of a dynamic with Gentry, and just. That's a name that it seems to be a lot of momentum behind right now with Devon Day Jordan. I need to get in the habit of calling him Day because that's what everyone's calling him. Threw me off when Brent Venables called him that the first time.
That's a little weird because he didn't, like when I was talking to him in high school, he never said nothing about Day. I never heard that until just now.
I never heard that before until like a week ago. But
it's like everybody on the team now calls Javonte Deuce.
Yeah. I think, did Ott come up with that? Or
I don't know if he came up with it, but he was I think he was the first one to like say it in a public setting. But then like yesterday when we were out there, like Javante's the one breaking down the huddle at the end of team stretch, and like you hear everybody referring to him as Deuce while they're out there on the field. So
Danny Okoye.
So you hear an interview with some type of that's what they.
Danny Okoye was some type of coyote, right? Isn't that what his name?
Yeah. Who did Schmitty? Did he say Schmitty gave him that nickname?
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. That seems to be a little reach, but whatever. Yeah. It plays. Koye's got. I could see him howling.
I'm always fine with calling a guy by his nickname if the guy is like that's okay to do. I don't want to disrespect anybody. Like you know. What I mean? No,
100%, 100%. But it's we're off and running. Fall camp. Let's say something else, and I totally just spaced on what it was. Oh well, we move on.
Did we talk? Tate Sandell looked pretty good. I mean, just
I've been told so far so good on Tate.
Yeah.
I had a team staffer tell me, basically great start, hasn't missed hardly at all. He's been hitting over 50 yarders. You need a kicking game to be solidified, obviously. So good start for him to camp as well. No doubt about that. But there you have it. So fall camp off and running. Obviously a lot more coverage to come. Another open practice, like we said, tomorrow. And we're continuing to make our way through the opener, just a little over 3 weeks away. Again, a reminder to subscribe at OaklandBy247sports.com. Use that promo code SoonersPod60. Get you 60% off. Use it before the start of the season. That way you can be with us all year long. It's going to be a heck of a season. I think we're all very optimistic. Oh, I remember what it was. Not important at all. We were talking about the nicknames. John Mateer calls Ben Arbuckle Buck. I don't know if we had established that already.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I heard that a few times in the spring too.
I don't remember ever hearing it. I guess I never caught it. But so Ben Arbuckle is Buck, apparently. It took me a second to realize that's who he's talking about. Makes sense, but there you have it. Nicknames.
What was the other one?
Is it Michael Boganowski? Is he Bug or is that just
Bug?
Was that like okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Interesting. Bug, everyone's got a nickname. I think is that a good sign?
I feel like that's a good sign. You're feeling good.
Vibes are high if everyone's got a nickname. So there you have it. Good vibes. SoonersPod60. Subscribe. All right. I think that's it for now. We'll be back later this week. Colin and I are going to catch up on Friday. He gets back from his vacation. We'll have some things to get into. Elijah Golden decision coming up. So Colin and I will certainly talk about that on Friday. So be sure to keep an eye out for that show Friday afternoon. The three of us will be back either Monday or Tuesday. We're at the mercy of fall camp schedule. So we'll see what that looks like. But early part of next week, we'll be back, continue our position preview series, continue to dive further into fall camp, as by the time we talk next week, we'll be inside of 3 weeks, inside of 20 days. We'll be in the teens on days until kickoff by the time the three of us do a show again, which is crazy. We're getting close. It feels good, excited, starting to feel it, building in Oklahoma, the vibe. High school football's coming up. Like everyone, you got it, starting to feel it a little bit. We shift into August and all that good stuff. So that's it for now. Back with Colin on Friday. Three of us will be back early part of next week. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway signing off for now. We'll see you next time right back here, as always, on Sooners Illustrated.
See you.